behind the very people who now held more than a few pieces of her heart. She'd formed bonds as strong as steel with those she now traveled with, and trying to get all of them clear of the type of trouble that usually came looking for her was nearly impossible, especially when many of her friends were warriors who preferred to meet their opponents head-on. Add to that her status as the Telroy of a powerful warlord, and it meant these people were as much hers to protect as they were his. Since he had as many enemies as allies, some who pretended to be friends even as they waited to stab you in the back, it meant she needed every tool in her arsenal, even if those tools had to be beaten into her tired and aching body. Knowing the reasoning behind the training didn't make the bruises hurt any less.
"Are you ready?"
Braden asked in a calm voice. Unlike most Trateri who tended toward dark hair and eyes, he was blonde, his hair cut short, making his already striking features even more memorable. Authority was stamped on every line, from the strong jaw to the intense eyes that seemed to pierce right through you. Shea gave him a sharp nod, knowing that he would begin even if she wasn't. Her hand tightened around the hilt of her wooden practice sword, something Trenton had magically materialized during that first practice when she thought she'd gotten away with leaving it behind. She centered herself, taking up the stance, one leg in front of the other, her weight evenly distributed in a way that would enable her to move in any direction at a moment's notice. Her arms trembled just slightly, tired from the last few days of practice as well as the strenuous journey that day. She watched her opponent carefully, alert to any signs of attack as he took his staff in a two-handed grip, pointing one end toward her, his stance a mirror of hers. Fighting an opponent with a staff when she held a sword was different than defending against a sword. Braden's blows had power and strength. The long reach of the staff meant she was constantly on the defensive, unable to return any of his strikes. Not that she could have, even if he'd been carrying a sword. He was just that good. She struggled to remember what they had taught her as he advanced in a whisper of movement, the staff pivoting in his hands so that he came at her from the opposite side of what she'd guessed. She lifted the sword to meet him, parrying the staff as she stepped to the side and attempted to riposte. There was a thunk as he easily blocked her with one part of the staff as the opposite end whipped up to fly at her face. She ducked and stumbled away, falling out of her stance as she fought to get her blade back into a defensive position. He granted her no mercy, advancing on her as he rained blows down, one after another. She fell into the rhythm of parry, stumble, parry as she backed up, her feet moving jerkily across the grass, trying to get enough distance between them so she could regroup. Loud, meaty thunks sounded in the air as he hammered at her defenses. Her heartbeat sped up to match her breathing, and sweat dripped down her temples. Her face was creased in a frown of concentration as she watched his movements, parrying his staff time and again.
"You can't defend forever,"
Braden said, his face still set in those calm lines. He was barely breathing hard. Keeping her on the defensive was evidently no more strenuous than a stroll across a meadow.
"Get distance and then re-engage,"
Trenton yelled from the sidelines.
"Move faster!"
Shea gritted her teeth, his words prodding a nerve. She caught Braden's staff with her sword and shoved hard, feeling satisfaction as he fell back a step. Seeing her chance, she stepped forward, swinging her sword at his torso. The staff reversed, whipping up as he shoved the end into her stomach. Breath whooshed out of her, and she fought the instinct to curl in on herself. She lifted the sword, angling it to protect her head and shoulder, just in time as the staff landed across it. Shea's muscles strained as he bore down.
"That's something, at least,"
Braden said in a mild voice. The pressure from above abated.